Welcome to the Bible, the Basketball, and the Briefcase podcast. I'm your host, Jay Martin, and I hope you're having a great new year. I love to start the new year and just really looking forward to all the promise that this year holds. I want to visit with you. This is the Bible, the Basketball, and the Briefcase. Really, today we're going to focus on the Bible for a few moments, and then we're going to move to the briefcase. I really want to talk to you about law and tell you some stories from my practice of law that I think might be interesting and also might be helpful to you if you know of anyone who has a similar problem, or maybe even you do, and I could help you with that. John chapter 4 is the story of Jesus reaching out to the Samaritan woman, the woman at the well. When I taught at RSOM, the Arkansas School for Ministry, I have taught evangelism, and rather than using a textbook or other information, we use John chapter 4. Because not only is it a beautiful story of Jesus reaching out in a way that was really, for his day, that was almost forbidden, but it was also really, I think, almost a model for how we can reach out to others in a very powerful way. Jesus has to go to Samaria, and while he is there, his disciples go to get supplies, and he positions himself near a well. And a woman comes in the hottest part of the day, which is not the time of day that people normally go to the well, but she came probably because she was trying to avoid being seen by others. Jesus saw her, though, and when Jesus sees someone, he really sees them. And this woman saw that it was a little bit odd, this man sitting there, and then he speaks to her and he asks her for a drink of water. And she says to him, living in that paradigm, in that culture, why are you, being a man, and not only a man, a Jewish man, why are you speaking to me, a Samaritan woman? And then Jesus begins this beautiful dialogue with her that leads her to the place. He just salts the conversation until he gets to the place where it really turns to spiritual matters. And so Jesus says, if you knew who it was that was asking you for a drink of water, you would say to him, give me living water, and he would give that living water to you. So he turned the situation to spiritual. And then pretty soon she's confessing sins. He didn't ask her about her sins, but she's talking about some things she had in her life. And then she asked this question because really he got down to the heart of the questions that she had in her life. And what she was curious was, how could she be right if she didn't know where to worship? Because she had conflicting information with where worship was supposed to occur. And Jesus said, a day is coming when it really won't matter where you worship. But what matters is that those who worship God will worship him in spirit and in truth. And from this interaction with this Samaritan woman, Jesus gives us this incredible truth about what true worship is, worshiping God in spirit and truth. The Samaritan woman leaves all behind, and she goes and tells the people in the village about this man who told her everything that she had ever done. Could this be the Messiah? So they came and they listened to Jesus, and a revival among the Samaritans began. Jesus' disciples came back, saw him speaking to a woman, and they began to ask questions to him what he was doing. And then Jesus turns the conversation with them to the spiritual, and he says that the Samaritan harvest is ripe. It's ready to be harvested. And so an incredible work of God occurred among Samaritans, who the Jews really considered at that time people that were not a priority, particularly spiritually. Jesus went on from that encounter to not only reaching the Samaritan woman, that the rumor about Jesus was not only did he reach Samaritans, but that he actually was a Samaritan. It was kind of like the ultimate insult that could be paid to someone then. Jesus was identified with the Samaritans. So it's just this beautiful story, but it's also Jesus going to where people are. And I think that's exactly what we are called to do today as the church. I think the day of having our sign out front and letting people know when our church is open, I think those days, they're still important to have those signs. We still need to let people know when our church is open. I think the heart of God, though, is that we go to where people are. We go to where the Samaritan woman is, a woman who would never come to church. She would have never gone to the temple to worship, but Jesus went to where she was. And over again, that's what we do. This Friday night, we will be leading the Kings team which is a team that goes and does street ministry. And we go and minister to the homeless and trafficked women, other people we find on the streets. And we reach them where they are. We give them food, we pray for them. But it's this principle of, I am going to go take the good news into my community, into the marketplace where people are. Maybe God is calling you to do more in 2026 to tell the good news to those around you. I think that is so important, and I would encourage you to do that. Read John chapter 4. Follow that model and let God use you in an amazing way. Okay, I want to tell you 3 stories about cases that I handled. The first case that I'm going to tell you about, and really all of these cases, well, 2 of the 3 kind of have a theme of having to fight insurance companies. And you will see that played out so well, I think, in both of these cases. The first case came to me my 3rd week practicing law. That was a long time ago, Drew. I've been practicing law now, Lord willing, March 24th will be 29 years, my 29-year anniversary here at this law firm that I've been here at the same place practicing law. But while I was here, same conference room, my 3rd week practicing law, a woman came in, and I'm not going to share many names, but I am going to tell the situations. I hope at least for 2 of these 3 to interview them later, and you can actually hear their story from their own mouths. I can't interview one person because they were killed, but that's a story too that is very important. But the lady that came to me my 3rd week practicing law, her son was killed, and she had a life insurance policy to pay. Basically, she had maintained the policy in case she had to bury one of her children. And the enrollment company came to her place of employment. She was doing laundry at a hotel and enrolled her in a lot of policies for her children and grandchildren, so much so that it was taking a big percentage of her paycheck every month. And then when something occurred, a death that should have fallen under the coverage of the policy, the insurance company was refusing to pay. So she came to us, and the first thing she did was she gave us the enrollment sheet, where basically the enroller was sitting across the desk from her. He was getting information from her, and he was writing down information. And then when I looked at this sheet, it was clear that there was one handwriting on all of the sheet, except for the blank that said full-time student. And in that blank, the blank for occupation rather, and in that blank, the words full-time student were written kind of in block letters, very different from the other script on the page. I'm not a handwriting expert, but common sense and just being able to view the difference, it was clearly different handwriting. And so when we determined that when Ms. Mickles left that interview that the block for employment was blank, her son was not a full-time student. That was not, as a matter of fact, that was a disqualifying event to be a full-time student. But somewhere down the line, either in the enrollment company or the insurance company, someone wrote the words full-time student. Then the insurance company conducted a sham investigation to prove that her son was not a full-time student. She said very clearly, my son's not a full-time student. And again, that was blank when she left the enrollment session. So because it said full-time student, they said we're denying coverage because he was in fact not a full-time student. And so that invalidated the enrollment, the contract, the insurance contract. We filed a claim for insurance bad faith. 10 years of litigation followed, and we had a jury trial. The jury came back with an award against both the insurance company and the enrollment company, and a very large award, because they believed us. Ms. Mickles, the blank on the form when she left, there was a blank, it was not written in, and then clearly we had a handwriting expert testified this is different script. As a matter of fact, the person who allegedly did the enrolling admitted in his deposition that he'd never even been in Arkansas, that he was just signing off on papers, which was in and of itself not a good thing. But there was one problem with the trial. So while we were able to get payment from the insurance company, the enrollment company appealed, and on the appeal, the case was reversed, and so we had to go have a second trial. This time, a second jury, when they looked at the facts of this case, not only believed us, but they doubled the amount they gave us this time against the company. It probably would have been better if they had not appealed and had a second trial. And then there was another appeal. And I realized when I closed this case after 10 years that the first 10 years of my practice, of course I did other things, but this was a big part of my practice. But this was really an important case for me. When I came to the practice of law, I had no idea that large companies acted this way or that they could be found guilty of insurance bad faith where they took an affirmative step of misconduct. So since that time, I've handled other insurance bad faith claims. I don't think I've ever seen one quite as egregious as that. And I've referred to this case as kind of like a John Grisham novel. The more information we found, just the more difficulty and problems we saw. And I went to Atlanta, Georgia to take depositions, and Cincinnati, Ohio, and went all over the place to take depositions. But it was a great result. And that woman has been a client for life because we were able to help her with a very difficult problem that she had in a very difficult time in her life. Second case was also a case involving an insurance company, but it was a tractor trailer accident case. And this was a case where I met a young woman. She was attending school, a Christian school, and she had a twin sister. And this young woman had met another twin group, and they were headed to a Christian concert on Interstate 40, headed east towards Memphis. The driver of the tractor trailer was headed westbound on Interstate 40 when she fell asleep at the wheel, came across the lanes, and hit the car being driven by the two young women who were the twins and my client, who was the one half of the twin set that was going to this concert. They were all killed instantly, and it was just a terrible, terrible accident that happened on Interstate 40. Well, we were able to get involved, and of course, tractor-trailer cases are very, very involved cases. We had to get all of the information. There's all kinds of data that the companies have to keep up with, everything from the condition of the wheels to the condition of every aspect of that 18-wheeler. And they also have to keep logs of time traveled and whether any medications were taken or anything by the driver. So when we got that information, it was very clear that this driver had violated some Department of Transportation regs and was clearly not only negligent, but also maybe a step beyond negligence. So we have a mediation, and we were able to get incredible information to the defendant and to the insurance company for the tractor trailer company. And they had all the information that they needed. This was a death case. There's a death case, you also have to open an estate. So we already had opened the estate. We brought the lawsuit for the estate of this young woman. And the other two individuals that were killed, they also opened estates, and they also brought lawsuits on their behalf. So into the mediation, there was a accident reconstruction video, such good information that we had to present in the mediation. Mediation started at about 9 a.m. in the morning, and at midnight, and you can't leave mediation, so about 17, 18 hours after starting, we did not get the case settled. And we found out in some of the deliberations, and the insurance company sent a rep from a very large city in the East, and it was just clear she did not have a high opinion of my client for no reason other than that she was just from Arkansas and was just a kind of a humble person. And some of the language that she used about my client was very appalling and very frustrating. And we left that mediation. We did not get the case settled. and we were getting ready to go have a trial. And the insurance company caved about a week later and paid every penny that we asked for. So when you're dealing with insurance companies, particularly in very big cases, wrongful death cases, or where there's some allegation of wrongdoing, over and over again, I've represented clients who had losses, car losses, fire losses, where the insurance company didn't want to pay, and we have to get involved so that they will pay. There's a great statute in Arkansas which allows us to get a 12% penalty, interest, and attorney's fees if there is a breach of an insurance contract. So that's been a good tool as well to help people with their own insurance company. But sometimes, like in the second case, you have to deal with someone else's insurance company, and that can be very challenging as well. We really made a difference for that family. Nothing could bring a beloved daughter back, a beloved sister back, but we were able to hold the person responsible who was driving the 18-wheeler. So it was a good result. The last case, really switching gears, I do contested adoption cases. Adoptions are very, very confidential, and I'm really going to be careful not to even mention any facts that would cause anyone to be able to know who I'm talking about. But I represented a foster family whose foster child had been with them for over 2 years. They were promised by the Department of Human Services that if parental rights were terminated, they would be able to adopt the child. They very much wanted to adopt the child, had the child most of the child's life. But then when it was time to adopt, parental rights had been terminated. The department decided that they wanted to place the child with a distant relative of one of the parents whose rights were terminated. This was going to be very traumatic for this child. The only parents she had ever known were these foster parents. They were very good people. She was doing very well in their home. But when the Department of Human Services has custody, in order to get an adoption, you have to prove that the adoption is in the child's best interest and that the Department of Human Services is withholding its consent in a manner that is unreasonable. And so it's a very high standard, and it's very difficult. But we felt like we had a case. We took depositions from some of the leaders of the Department of Human Services, other witnesses, including these relatives. And we went and we had a trial, a very long trial over this issue. And I was so pleased that we were able to win the day and that this child was able to be adopted by these foster parents. It actually became a kind of a cottage industry as I began to represent more and more foster parents in the same situation. But the future of children is so important. So to have the opportunity to help really see an adoption occur where it looked impossible through litigation was very good. We're trial lawyers, and so it's very helpful. You can see what the process of a good preparation and good trial work can do, even in a contested adoption case. Not only the big tractor trailer cases or the insurance bad faith, but also just an adoption or in family law or guardianship where it's contested. That can be very, very helpful as well. Those are 3 stories from the practice of law. I do want to tell you that we have another webinar coming up to talk about trusts, and I believe that's coming up the last Monday in January. Do you have the date, Drew? I forgot to get that date before I came here. I don't have it in hand, but we'll give you the date. I'm sure Drew will put some information there too. I'm also excited because we brought a young man in as an associate here who is going to help us. What's the date? Okay, January 26th at 5:30 p.m. here at the office. And again, we'll have a live event, and we'll have a webinar as well, so you can attend on the web. But so excited to have Jacob Russell with us too. Jacob's helping us with trusts, and so it'll be very effective, I think. So you'll want to make plans to be part of that as well. So thank you for being part of this podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it. Have a great rest of your day.